The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
SpaceX founder Elon Musk did a Reddit AMA the other day and asked me anything, and he answered a lot of questions about the SpaceX planned Mars missions, and the stuff he said is absolutely fascinating, and I want to talk about a little bit of it with you. Number one is just the timing of it. We've been talking for a while about Elon Musk saying 2018 SpaceX is going to Mars, and Elon Musk said hopefully 2018, but maybe 2020, more likely 2020 in the Reddit AMA. So that in and of itself is already kind of news, although not really, because most of us had a sense that 2018 is really pretty damn soon. I don't know about you, Pat, but I've been skeptical about 2018 for a while.
Well, if you shoot for the moon, you may land on Mars.
Yeah, quite literally here in that case. And then he got into answering questions about the spacecraft and how the Mars colonists would actually live. And the idea is basically one of the early crafts that will go to Mars based on SpaceX's plans will bring what is necessary to build a propellant plant so that then you could actually derive methane and water from the Martian atmosphere. This is not exactly terraforming from science fiction lore of decades and decades ago, but it is not that far from it. I mean, it is the idea of bringing what you need to then work with the atmosphere on Mars to create what is needed for life. It wouldn't be you can walk around on Mars outside of domes or pressurized tunnels, but it is still using the atmosphere to create a livable environment. And then that would be sort of one of the first things that the colonists would do. And then the idea would be to increase the number of flights every 26 months. So every 26 months, the number of one-way trips to Mars would start to increase. It all sounds great, right? But the one thing that was not discussed during the Reddit AMA was how are you going to pay for all this? And this seems to be one of the biggest questions around the plans that SpaceX has for Mars, which is, yeah, the ideas are great, but where are you going to get the money for this? And that was not answered. Another super interesting thing that was brought up during this Reddit AMA with Elon Musk was what are the structures going to be like, the permanent structures where Mars colonists will live. And Elon Musk said initially glass panes with carbon fiber frames to build geodesic domes on the surface, plus a lot of miner and tunneling droids. The idea being that if you go into the Martian surface, you can build a significant amount of pressurized space for individual operations and then keep these above the surface glass domes for green living space. Hey, it all makes perfect sense to me, but does this feel like, what's your gut instinct about whether this feels realistic, Pat?
The timeline, I'd have to say no way. I mean, the Obama administration, we covered this about a month ago, predicted by the 2030s we'd be able to do this, and the cost is just way too high. How are you going to pay for this? Some sort of crowdfunding? I mean, $10 billion, that's a lot of money.
10 billion, rather.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you said a million. Yeah, it's an insane amount of money. It's a crazy amount of money, and the timeline of it is questionable. But the more that we're getting into this, I know that there are still some people in our audience who say, David, the entire idea of Mars is a total fantasy that's never going to happen. I am definitely not in that camp. For me, this is a matter of when, not if. We're definitely going to Mars.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people in that camp also don't think we went to the moon, too, and that was some big stage conspiracy theory.
Yeah, well, those are the same people who email me and have been for years saying, David, there's no autonomous cars coming. Just forget about it. Autonomous cars, it's ridiculous. Well, tomorrow I'll have a story about autonomous truck deliveries that are now happening already. And of course, you know that there are self-driven autopilot Ubers operating in Pittsburgh, although you still need to have someone in the driver's seat. Denial is an interesting thing, and it does afflict some of the people in our audience. I assume mostly not bonus show subscribers, though. Really horrible news from Australia, where 4 people were killed at the largest theme park in Australia when a ride malfunctioned. It was 2 men and 2 women who were pronounced dead by police after an incident on the Thunder River Rapids ride. at Dreamworld theme park in Queensland, Australia, and a bunch of people injured by a conveyor belt. There was basically a sort of malfunction, and it caused 2 people to be ejected from the ride, and another 2 people were caught inside the ride. This sounds horrifically gruesome and absolutely horrible. And I've gone on some rides. Like, for example, there's a Six Flags theme park in Agawam, Massachusetts, in Western Mass, near where I went to high school. And I've been there, and my experiences were, I went on an old roller coaster. I think it's called the Cyclone.
Cyclone, yep.
And it was horrific. I mean, it's so bumpy because it's just so old that it's not the drops that were scary to me. It's the fact that I was being vibrated insanely, and it was not an enjoyable experience. They have the Superman ride, which has just like an insanely steep descent. I've not been on that. That was too much for me. And they have a Batman ride where you basically, your legs are hanging and you're strapped in with almost like a vest holds you in. And I did that one, and because that one's new, it was very, very smooth, and it goes upside down and stuff. It was okay. I'm not huge into these rides, and I very often think, legs hanging, all these different things. I get that there's safety tests and requirements and restrictions and regulations, but it just doesn't feel that safe to me.
Well, I've been on all 3 rides that you've described, also growing up here. The Cyclone has since been closed down.
Oh, it has?
Yeah, it just went out of commission, too
Wow.
old. Superman, that actually was the cause of one fatality about 10 years ago. But if you look at the ride where these people died in this story, I mean, it doesn't look too intimidating of a ride. It's like a water-themed ride where you're kind of locked in.
Yeah.
And it's surprising that this kind of accident would have happened.
Well, that's only further proof that even if it doesn't look dangerous, it can still be dangerous. And my dad and little sister were recently at I guess it's Disneyland Paris. There's a Disney in Paris, outside of Paris. I don't know if it's Disneyland or Disney World. Neither of them was too thrilled with it. It's an absolute and total tourist trap. And of course I warned them of that, but they insisted on going anyway. Conversation for a different day. But they said that a lot of these rides are just not in the greatest shape, and it really doesn't feel, aside from the fact that it's supposed to feel out of control, that's sort of the fun of it, that structurally, some of them just didn't look and feel that safe. And I think I'm kind of done with theme park rides.
Yeah, I mean, you probably have to look at the regulations on roller coasters at theme parks. I mean, I'm sure they're not too strict, but when you're putting yourself in speeds that you're not supposed to go naturally, and going upside down and this sort of thing, that's something that the government has to be like really strict on regulating.
It's just hard to imagine. I'm not saying that even going on these rides is bad for your health, but it's hard to argue that being exposed to these unnatural forces, acceleration, deceleration, upside down, etc., it must have some impact on some not 0% of the population, right? I mean, there must be people who are affected by what these rides do.
Yeah, but it's hard to say because most people don't do this regularly. It's maybe a once-a-year thing.
Yeah.
And I know I certainly enjoy the adrenaline rush, and we'll do it every now and then.
Did you go to the Agawam Six Flags?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
You did? Okay. Is that the only one? Like, does everybody go to that one? Is it that well known? I just knew it was 15 minutes away growing up, so it was not a huge deal.
That's the Six Flags New England, which is easily the biggest one in the area.
Oh, okay. Well, the more you learn. Interesting. Okay, real quick. I've been nominated as treasurer of the condo association where I live here in Boston. So really quick backstory. My neighborhood in Boston has tons of new construction, brand new buildings. There's a ton of, when the gentrification happens, all of these old auto filter shops and metal fabrication shops and whatever, they get bought out, they get knocked down, and then condo buildings go in. And when that happens, when you move in, at a certain point, the builder turns over control of the condo association to the owners. And I've had no interest in being part of the condo board, a trustee or board member. I don't remember exactly the term that is used, period. Because when I used to live in Northampton, Massachusetts, I was pulled into that condo board, and it was an insane amount of work. And believe me, settling disputes between condo association owners, this is not what I would consider fun. This is not what I would consider a good use of time. So I've basically been silent on the building mailing list throughout the discussion of how should we nominate people for our new board? What will be the voting process, et cetera, et cetera. And I got home from Las Vegas over the weekend and saw an email saying, here are the nominations that have been put forward. David Pakman, treasurer of the condo association in the building. And now I have to choose. It says you can decline the nomination, but this is not a huge building, right? Everybody knows everybody. Am I not going to seem kind of like a prick if I say, sorry, I'm turning this down? And then there's another risk, obviously, which is I do somewhat subscribe to the Lewis idea that most people are incompetent. And there's a very good chance that the people that were nominated probably are the most competent in the building. And if I decline, somebody who really is not equipped to be treasurer might end up being treasurer. So my girlfriend says I should just do it, but I really do not want to be involved in this.
Well, this just begs the question of who actually nominated you, you know?
Yeah.
And also, do you get any perks from being the treasurer of this? Do you not have to pay your condo fee association?
No, you got to pay the by the way, fallacious use of beg the question. Common, but that's not the right. I used to do the same thing. Story for a different day. Anyway, but let's put that on the bonus show tomorrow, along with the apostrophe thing, by the way, which I've been researching.
And I was right about.
Oh, I do not believe that.
We'll have to have a debate on it tomorrow.
Well, so let me just make a note here. We're going to be doing the apostrophe thing and beg the question. We're going to do that tomorrow. Exciting bonus show tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Someone in the building who has good judgment but is way too busy to actually be on the board nominated me. So I don't know if it's an insult to them if I decline the nomination.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you can do here. I mean, you're in a sticky situation no matter what.
Yeah, and so we'll see what happens. I'm going to sort of see. My thought was to not decline, but to open the door to a different nominee by saying something like, I'm flattered that I've been nominated, and if elected, I will serve. But having been on condo boards before and knowing the amount of time that's required, I do have a concern that I won't be able to properly commit to this in a way that would make me the best equipped to handle the finances of the building. And that way I'm sort of putting out a disclaimer. If I can't make the meetings, if I can't keep up with the work, I said it. And I'm giving the opportunity for someone to say, oh, you know what, David? You're right. We should really have someone who's sure they have the time to devote to this. I'm going to nominate Joe Schmo instead. Maybe that's my best bet.
And it's also not even just a matter of time as it is passion. I mean, if you don't really care, if you're sort of ambivalent to how the condo is run, I mean, you're not going to put your best work forward.
I'm ambivalent until it's run the wrong way, right? And then so that would be something that suggests I should get involved. But in any case, that's what's going on, and I will keep you posted as to whether I am in or out on the condo board. It reminds me of the Seinfeld episodes where Jerry's parents are at Del Boca Vista in Florida, and there is major drama with Jerry's dad involving the condo board. And it's not really even an exaggeration of what it's like. I mean, that was my experience on the condo board that I was on. Okay, that's it for the bonus show. We've got a great bonus show for you tomorrow, and of course, a great regular show.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.